Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all my guys, gals, and non binary pals, depending upon when you're watching it. It's evening right now. No guarantee you're going to watch it over the evening. I hope you had a great New Year's and you are enriched with hope for the new year. And it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. As I always say, if you're feeling a negative way, if you're feeling empty, if you're feeling lost, please turn off this video and dial 988. That is the suicide hotline. Nobody needs to make a permanent solution to a temporary issue. This video is not that important, and it'll still be there. You are loved, you are cared about, and you are needed. So once again, if you're feeling any which way, I am not a mental health professional. Turn me off, dial 988, and you will get a mental health professional. We're going to do some story time today. Or more so, we should stop telling the story time. I'm not a fan of lying to children. I'm just not. I just don't think starts things off right in their life. So I want to share a story that I was taught as fact in like the first or second grade, which even then I knew was nonsense. Oh, well, spoiler warning is nonsense. Although there are historians who say this really happened. Again, spoiler warning, it didn't. Now, I'm going to be talking about the story about George Washington, the first president under the Constitution, chopping down a cherry tree. So I'm going to tell the story and my analysis while I go along with it. I am using the version taught by the Mount Vernon Washington Institute. There are various different versions, which should send a hint that there shouldn't be different versions of a factual story, because there can only be one version, but yeah, it didn't really happen. So, let's get on to it. George Washington had a mother and a father. His father was named Augustine Washington, and his mother was named Mary Washington. He had 5 siblings and a bunch of half-siblings who were a lot older, who are not really relevant to this story. So, on George's 6-year birthday, his father, Augustine, thought it appropriate to buy him a gift. And I think that's appropriate. I think we should buy 6-year-olds gifts on their birthday or holidays. I just bought my niece and nephew's gifts for the holidays, and my nephews are 6. What I didn't consider buying them was a hatchet. I didn't know what to buy them, actually, and I ended up buying them Minecraft cards. I don't even really know what that is, but that was the advice my sister gave me. But had she said, you know what, buy them a hatchet, I think more conversation would have had to take place. Because something about it just sounds wrong, putting an instrument of violence into a 6-year-old's hands. So Augustine Washington bought his son George a hatchet. Now, if you don't know what a hatchet is, it's like a mini axe which you destroy things with. There's nothing else to do with it than destroy things. So, get the hatchet. He says, young 6-year-old George, here is a hatchet. So, and also, George had 5 younger siblings. You don't want to give somebody with a 6-year-old with younger siblings a hatchet. I love my sister to death. At 6 years old, giving me a hatchet wouldn't have played well for her or me. So, gives him this hatchet. And what does he do with the hatchet? The only thing he can do with the hatchet. He starts destroying stuff. And just, chopping random stuff until he stumbles upon his father's favorite cherry tree. Now, he knows this is his father's favorite cherry tree. And he thought, well, I got this hatchet. Let's, give it a test on the cherry tree. And here's the first issue I have. So he kills the cherry tree. Now, a hatchet is not a full axe. A normal hatchet, doesn't really have the ability to kill a full tree. So there's only one or two things that could have happened here. Either this was the most magnificently strong hatchet in the world in the 1730s, or young George was on performance-enhancing drugs. George, he was, he laid the foundation for Jose Canseco, Barry Bonds, Lance Armstrong, you name steroid user. George Washington was the first one because he was able to kill the cherry tree. And he did it intentionally, knowing it was his father's favorite cherry tree. So he was being malicious. Now, when talking about George Washington, people talk about his honesty. So you would think upon accidentally killing the cherry tree, he would go right to his father and confess his sins. No, that's not what happened. Not by the Mount Vernon version. He just went away and hoped it would go away. He just hoped, and trust me, as a kid, I did a lot of messed up things just hoping I wouldn't get caught. And sometimes I didn't get caught. Most of the times I did. But he just sort of went about his business of whatever a 6-year-old in the 1730s did. But, so, his father then walks out to the farm, and he observes his favorite cherry tree has been destroyed. And he's angry. And he doesn't know who did it, because his 6-year-old son, who he just bought a hatchet for, doesn't seem like the obvious answer here. Because I guess Augustine Washington, I don't know, didn't put 2 and 2 together. Like, the story is so flawed. So, the next night, a full 24 hours later, the Washington family, without the step and half children, are having dinner. And for some reason, they never show who put the dinner together. I wonder why. Oh, yeah, because it was slaves who put it together, and they didn't want to add slavery to this story. Oops. And Augustine is mad. I guess he just held in the anger for 24 hours. And he's like, my cherry tree has been destroyed. Who destroyed it? Now, let's go into the mind of 6-year-old George here. He is the only one with a hatchet, and a hatchet strong enough to destroy a cherry tree, or he's the only one personally strong enough, due to performance-enhancing drugs, to destroy a cherry tree with a small little hatchet. He had, his other siblings were 5-year-old Betty. They didn't give women hatchets back then. 1-year-old Mildred, she was 1 and she was a female, and they didn't give them hatchets back then. There was 4-year-old Samuel Washington. I see no evidence he had a hatchet. There was 2-year-old John Augustine Washington. I mean, I don't know if Augustine Washington would give a hatchet to a 2-year-old, being I question his parenting ability, but there's no evidence that he did. And then there was 1-month-old Charles Washington, who probably wouldn't even know what to do with it to begin with. And there was a lot of other people around who weren't talked about. So we're just going to take them out of the story, because they would have been a good excuse for George to try to get out of trouble. blame it on the help. Yeah. So he looked at his siblings and he's like, well, can't really blame any of them. Can't blame my mom. He was caught. He was caught dead to right at the dinner table. So he stands up and says, Father, I cannot tell a lie. It was I who chopped down the cherry tree. Let's analyze this for a second. Maybe people referred to their parents as father and mother back then. I don't know. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Cool. But I cannot tell a lie? That sounds like a mental condition. Now, I don't want to lie to you. That would, that could at least try to appease his dad. I feel that I need to be honest about this. Okay. Things to try to soften the blow. But I cannot tell a lie? Like I don't have the ability to lie? Well, that's a problem. Because lying, while it's not a good thing, is part of what makes people people. And it's actually part of our judicial system when you get older. Now, this is stuff I didn't put together as a child, but when a criminal defendant is arraigned, it's very rare that they'll say they're guilty at their arraignment. They'll always say not guilty, even if they plan on pleading guilty, because they want to have their attorney analyze the evidence, get the best deal for them. So, under this logic, if he cannot tell a lie, every person who's arraigned in criminal court who's guilty would have to say they're guilty or then get tried for perjury for saying they're not guilty. Because we're trying to set, a moral that he cannot tell a lie. Cannot tell a lie? When people take lie detector tests, which are not admissible in court, but are used by the police when they're doing interrogations to try to either disqualify or include a potential culprit, I've watched a lot of true crime, they will ask the person taking the lie detector test to tell a lie. A very simple lie. Like if they're taking it on Tuesday, they'll ask them to say it's Wednesday, because the readings for a lie are different from person to person, and who's ever running the test needs to see what results an individual will show when they're lying as opposed to the truth. So I guess that would mean no more lie detector tests to be used to try to implicate or exonerate somebody before the trial stage. Goes away. Bye-bye. Because I cannot tell a lie. That is such a ludicrous phrase. It boggles my mind. And George was caught. He was caught dead to rights. Let's see. The cherry tree was destroyed by a hatchet, and there's one person in the house who got a hatchet the day earlier. Now, I know I don't think that Augustine Washington was the smartest dude in the world, but I think he could probably put that one together. You don't need a legal genius to figure this out. So he says, Father, I cannot tell a lie. I can only imagine if I said that to my dad when I was a kid. And I tried the lines to try to, soften things. Like, I can't lie to you. I feel we have a bond and all that stuff. I tried it. It failed, but at least that made sense. But I never tried to say, I cannot tell a lie, because that's stupid. And it's ludicrous. So, but, this is my favorite part. Augustine Washington stands up and says, "Son, I am so proud of you that you cannot tell a lie. And there's no consequences for chopping down the tree." This was his favorite tree. And because he came up with this stupid "I cannot tell a lie" thing, 0 consequences. He still performed a crime against his family, which was chopping down his father's favorite cherry tree. Now, yes, his father was a moron for giving him a hatchet. Now, by the way, back then, proper gifts would have been obviously not a Minecraft card, which is what I gave to my 6-year-old nephews. But presents during the time for 6-year-olds, I actually looked this up, were like marbles, teddy bears. And there was a game with cups and balls, which I didn't really understand, but that was a thing. Not hatchets. Wasn't really on the present spectrum for 6-year-olds. But, I guess George could get one because he cannot tell a lie. But if he was really moral, wouldn't have he told his dad immediately when the tree was destroyed, as opposed to waiting and hoping it would go away? And then 24 hours later, he was caught dead to right, then come up with this whole thing? It's such an asinine story. We need to stop telling it to children as fact. And you know what? If you want to tell it as like a morality thing with the caveat this didn't really happen, cool. I'm fine with that. I actually, I'm an atheist, but I think there's a lot of good things that come out of the Bible for teaching morality. But this story is like, stop teaching it as something that actually happened, because it so obviously didn't. Nobody cannot tell a lie. There is nobody. Find me one person who doesn't have the ability to say the wrong day of the week consciously. Today is Monday. Watch this. It's Wednesday. See, that was easy. And anybody can do that. So it's sending a silly message. And also, there's no consequences. Consequence-free, because he came up with this stupid "I cannot tell a lie" thing. Which honestly, if somebody told me I cannot tell a lie and believed it, I would bring them to a psychiatric institute, not be proud of them. And this would also give George Washington carte blanche to do whatever he wanted, as long as he didn't lie about it, which he didn't have the ability to do anyway because he couldn't tell a lie. It's so flawed. We need to stop this. It's so silly. And also, George Washington lied a lot. I mean, I know, father of the country, all that stuff, but he did promise to free all his slaves upon his death, which he didn't do. So we do know that he was able to lie, because he did lie. But that takes a little more advanced studying. But just the dynamics of this story are so abundantly stupid. We need to stop teaching it as something that actually happened. Because the more we dumb down what we teach our children, the more I believe they will feel entitled to act dumb, because we treated them like they were dumb. So I just wanted to go off on the George Washington cherry tree story. So you'll notice, if you look at the pictures, the family looks like a happy white family, not a slave in sight, although there were, I think, over 100 on the Mount Vernon plantation at the time. And yeah, revisionist history is not a good thing. That's what gets us in trouble again. So I am choosing to not lie to you right now and tell you that that story is BS and should not be taught as fact. Again, if you want to use it to like teach a moral lesson, I'm cool with that, but don't teach it as fact. It takes away from the teacher's credibility too. Because the teacher who told me that story, I did not take seriously anymore. Because I just heard that story and I'm like, oh, okay, you're going to teach me that? Well, obviously you don't respect me. So that's it. This was a special request from Chris B. If you watch till the end, he'll notice the shout out and put a comment in there. Little test. I love you all. Happy 2024. Don't chop down cherry trees that aren't yours. Don't take performance enhancing drugs. And don't lie because you do have the ability to. Love you. Have a wonderful evening.